have a riddle for you guys. What grows at an average rate of 0.9 centimeters per month, comes in different shapes and textures, and defies gravity as it grows up rather than down? No, it's not grass, or my eyelashes, or this hair, my natural hair. Growing up, my natural hair was a large part of my life. Every Sunday, my mom would spend hours doing my hair into hairstyles such as braids and twists. And as I grew older, I began to do those exact same hairstyles myself. And I thought everyone knew the pain of having to spend hours on the living room floor while your mom does your hair. I never realized that my experiences were different until second grade. I remember it was the first day of school, and I was excited to wear my hair in the perfect hairstyle, a part in the middle with 2 afro pigtails. However, when I arrived to school that day, my classmates and teachers gave me weird looks, and as the day progressed, my teacher pulled me to the side and said that my hair was distracting and didn't follow the dress code. And that moment would stick with me each time I decided to wear my natural hair. In our society, there is much emphasis on how we present ourselves, such as our clothes, our shoes, and our hair. However, for Black people, the experiences we face due to our outward appearance varies from our non-Black counterparts, especially when it comes to our hair. According to a 2021 research study done by Dove, it was found that Black children will face hair-based discrimination as early as 5 years old, and the impact can last a lifetime. See, my experiences are not unique, as the mystery surrounding Black hair has created many situations similar to mine. It often stems from a lack of knowledge of Black hair and the stereotypes that dictate its portrayal in society. So, what is Black hair? Well, Black hair is a spectrum. The main textures are type 3 and type 4. Type 3 is characterized by curly hair with an S-shaped curl, while type 4 is kinkier with tighter coils and zangled coils, and some even grow up rather than down. And there are many hairstyles that can be done, such as braids, which is artificial hair that is braided into one's hair, or weaves, artificial hair that is sewn into one's hair. And these are just a few styles, as many can be done. Now, the impact of a hairstyle may seem minute, but with research finding that Black people spend over $1 billion on hair products alone each year, our hair is obviously a very important and integral part of our lives. Now, despite its importance, Black hair has been looked down upon for centuries because of its texture and style. However, it wasn't always this way. In ancient African tribes, Black hair was used to symbolize one's status, tribe, and even fertility. And the Nigerian Yoruba tribe described it as the Ade Dudu Ori, the black crown of one's head. And equally, men and women would spend time styling each other's hair into styles such as Bantu knots, dreadlocks, and other creative forms. Now, the beginnings of the transatlantic slave trade would warrant a shift in the portrayal of Black hair. When slave masters arrived on the shores of Africa, they often labeled Black hair as woolly and compared it to features of animals, not only to highlight their Eurocentric features, but also to convince Africans that they were lesser than. And once slaves were captured, the very first thing that would happen is their heads would be shaved, which symbolized the metaphorical stripping away of their identity and the most important aspect of their natural attribute, their hair. And once they arrived on the shores of the US, simpler hairstyles such as cornrows, afros, and simple braids replaced the hairstyles that had been such an important part of their past. And in some places, Black hair was even prohibited from being seen. In 1786 in Louisiana, laws were passed that banned Black hair from being seen in public, and Black women were forced to cover their hair with scarves. And those stereotypes that existed then still exist today. Today, media outlets have covered hundreds of stories of Black people being discriminated against within schools and the workplace for wearing their natural hair. And according to the same 2021 research study, it was found that 80% of Black women feel the need to change their hair to fit into social norms. In a handful of states, Black students have been sent home from school barred from graduation and even from participating in school clubs and activities for wearing hairstyles such as the one on my head. And these situations have caused outrage across not only the US, but the world. And it's not just limited to America. For example, in an all-girls school in South Africa, girls protested a clause in their dress code that prohibited them from wearing black hairstyles. See, these situations are not unique, and they can affect the subconscious of many black boys and girls about messages about what their hair should look like in society. The term good hair has been used to describe hair that is straight or straightened, and it first came into existence during the early 1800s in black communities. And 100 years later, the very first straightener for black hair was created. And a few years after that, the chemical relaxer that chemically straightened black hair. Advertising during this time showcased straightened black hair as being associated with beauty and success. And fast forward to today, these same sentiments hold true, where chemical relaxers and straighteners dominate the hair care process for many black people, just as it did for me. See, after the many experiences I had with my natural hair, I decided that I needed to change it. And in 9th grade, for the very first time, after spending hours and hours in the salon, I straightened my hair for the very first time. And immediately, I felt like a completely different person. And I began to convince myself that my straightened hair was better than my natural hair and the black hairstyles that I would typically do. And when I went to school that very next day, my classmates and friends told me how beautiful my hair looked. And some even told me they preferred it straightened over my braids and my natural hair. And finally, I felt as though I fit in with everyone else and would no longer be treated differently because of my hair. Now, my experience is not uncommon, as many black girls try to adhere to the standards of beauty set upon us. Black women use pressing combs, straighteners, and relaxers to make their hair straight, despite some studies even finding that these methods use chemicals that can not only damage black hair, but can leave black people at a heightened risk of developing diseases such as cancer and diabetes. And after a while, I began to ask myself why I was convincing myself that my hair wasn't good enough. And after countless discussions with friends and family members, I began to understand. I learned that hair bias and prejudice can come from a place of unconscious bias. For example, in workplaces and schools, vague terms such as professionalism can cause unintentional discrimination. For example, in a 2020 research study, it was found that Black people who wore their natural hair to interviews were more likely to receive negative ratings than their other interviewees. I finally began to understand why I had been so reluctant to wear my hair like this. It was because it was different. Different from the hair of my classmates, friends, and even the people I watched on TV. And I didn't want to be treated differently because of it. But as I've grown older, I've realized that my hair is my superpower and is a testament of my culture and my history. And today, more people are growing to realize the importance of preserving Black hair and hairstyles. We are actually living in a resurgence of the natural hair movement, where Black people around the world are embracing their own hair. And today, ordinary people and governments are working to eliminate hair-based prejudice in schools and the workplace. In 2019, the Crown Act, creating a respectful and open world for natural hair, was created by Dove and the Crown Coalition to eliminate hair-based prejudice. And despite this act's importance, it has failed to have been passed in the Senate twice. And in states such as Florida, it has yet to have been passed. Now, in spite of that, in 19 states, the act has already been passed. But more can be done to eliminate hair-based prejudice. Ordinary people like you and me can be part of changing the portrayal of Black hair in society. Schools and employers can work to create dress codes that include everyone, and not just a select few, and can work as a collective to support bills and acts such as the Crown Act. Because our world is changing, and so is the acceptance of Black hair today. While it will take time, we are getting closer to a world in which Black hair will be accepted in whichever shape or form that it takes. because Black people should be allowed and proud to wear their hair in whichever shape or form, whether it's braids, dreadlocks, afros, or even straightened, because it's their choice to do so and not ours. So if I could go back in time to the little second grader who thought that her hair wasn't good enough, I would tell her that her hair is the Black crown of her head, and that it's beautiful.